A three, a two, a one. Start the engines and let's get the goings. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the F1 Failcast edition, slightly reminiscing on the World War II. We are chomping our way over to Canada for our F1 end-of-season review and banter edition. My name is Mr. Polkenberg, and alongside me, as always, is the ever-faithful taco friend extraordinaire, Mr. Definitely Zero. How are you doing?
Happy birthday, Mr. President. I am good. I have my acai-flavoured energy drink.
Ooh.
I'm off work now. I'm going travelling tomorrow. I'm going to take a long weekend somewhere else, somewhere cold and rainy. So I'm doing all right. I've just had a massive curry as well, so really it is all coming up Ben.
Oh, wow. Num, 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 num. That might help you down the straight.
I've won the dinner lottery. I'm also quite good here, which normally is the prelude to me crashing, obviously. And it would be good if we could both make it through without crashing this week. Because I don't believe we've had a round yet where we've both finished, have we? Oh, no. Azerbaijan on our third attempt.
Yes, it was a lottery, wasn't it?
Yeah, because one of us crashed out in Australia. No, we both DNF'd in Australia. I remember that.
Yeah.
There's a double DNF in Australia because that was really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I crashed in. I crashed in Bahrain. You crashed in China. I crashed in Baku. You crashed in Monaco. Yeah.
Chips
so
for
we're doing good.
This has been the most crappish year for our driving ever. NC Gamer Boy says, "Good day, you bloody legends." I'm assuming we've got to do that in an Aussie accent.
I can't. I don't want to offend him. You know?
I could do it in Chinese.
We've made a new friend. I don't want to upset him.
Yeah.
We say enough that could get us taken off air as it is.
That is true.
What I'm noticing is that in some bizarre twisted mirror universe, Sebastian Vettel is leading the championship by a massive margin.
He is. Mind you, we've not hit mid-season yet, so he's yet to have his meltdown.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll get very angry and crash into the back of his teammate for no conceivable reason.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Well then, my friend, shall we dive in? Because we have got so much to go over. And something has bitten me on my leg.
Sorry about that.
That's not relevant, technically speaking, but I thought I'd throw it in there for variety. I don't want people to claim we're a one-dimensional podcast.
That might throw you out in terms of doping at the end of the round.
You know, they don't want people going away and telling their friends, well, you know, it's all right, but all they do is talk about Formula One. Really? It's fucking boring.
So I'm going for harder tyre allocation because I ruin my tyres around this track, and I'm going to try something different because why the hell not? It's all going to go downhill, I'm sure already.
Burn the heretic. You know how it works when we have independent thoughts and when we try to alternate the strategy. It never ever goes well.
I'll be waking up in a cold sweat with Theresa May beside me. Oh, soggy.
Well, whatever it was on my leg is now bleeding profusely, so that's good.
Oh my god.
Yep, it's all right. What's a little blood loss between friends?
Let's not be HIV. It's dry for the race, but wet for quali.
Oh, somehow, some way, it's Margaret Thatcher's fault. Curse you, Thatcher.
Just live news as it goes out, because I'm an O2 customer and I've had no phone access all day. It won't be fixed till tomorrow, says O2, so screw us all. I want compensation.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I've been watching everyone get very upset about this whole thing, and I have zero sympathy because my budget, unheard of German mobile phone provider cut off my service for over 2 weeks with no compensation. So this is nothing. This is a trifling nonsense.
Okay. Sounds a bit like Stoffel Van Door's career.
Oh, trifling nonsense. That'll be the title of his autobiography. Oh, God bless him.
I'm sure Grosjean could make a little dish.
Should we start with him?
Yeah, go on then.
Should we start with him, since we were having a bit of a natter about him before we went live? And
yes.
You know, it's good to start on a laugh, isn't it?
And don't worry, NC Gamer Boy, we will get to your Formula E topics, but we'll do that a little bit later once we've covered the F1 stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I'm super excited about the Formula E season. I'm a bit of a Formula E nerd becoming.
Yes.
And we will touch a little on it now, actually, because we're talking about Van Dorn. So, I mean, as it's a season review, why don't we won't go in any particular order, but why don't we start with McLaren?
Okay.
And that allows us to kick off with Van Dorn without us feeling like we are already off on a tangent, as I try not to smash into a barrier in the rain. So, I mean, I don't really know what adjectives and superlatives you can really have for the world's most boring driver. I mean, he was bad, but in the most unspectacular way. And I remember last season you and I had quite a discussion about this because we were on different pages at that point, and I'd already sort of made my mind up about him that he'd been very wallpaper pasty. I don't think this season did anything to alleviate that. In fact, it converted you over to the same opinion as myself. But what I found most telling actually is from Formula E, because obviously he's joined HWA Racing for Formula E this season, and you can find this on autosport.com. It's a few days old now, the article, but it did have a snippet from his new team principal, who was talking after Van Dorn's car failed, I believe, in testing, and obviously people were maybe picking fault with his choice of driver for next season, and it was really interesting to watch him try and be both positive about a driver who hadn't turned the wheel in anger for his team yet, while also recognising that he was the John Major of Formula One. He said, well, you know, Stoffel has a bright and dominant junior Formula career, and obviously it didn't quite work out for him in Formula One, and it was very much smacking of this. Well, you know, he was good before. I mean, obviously not in the last 2 years, and those years were laughable, completely ridiculous. But, you know, we're hoping that he gets closer to his teammate here than he ever did to Fernando Alonso's back hair. The whole thing was... I felt quite sorry for Stoffel, because although I'm kind of bashing him a little bit here, for Jesus Christ, we're only 2 minutes in. Right, well, we have to restart now, because I've balls my lap now from laughing at you.
It was really pathetic as well.
Well, we don't crash any other way, do we?
So
why don't
sorry.
you? Right, if you back out, you invite me in. Because if we both quit, it'll save, and then we'll just start at the back, and then we'll probably start at the back anyway. But you know, it's good for it to be for reasons. Your car hasn't despawned. Oh, you're crashing the most ridiculous position.
Yep.
Your car hadn't despawned. I can see you there. How did you even begin to crash there?
I just locked up and went straight. I'd lost my front wing because I'd ran wide at turn 1, and then decided to spank it straight into Hamilton. Damage my wing, and then just do the most pathetic lock up and spin off.
Let me ask you a question. Are there a lot of lit candles in your room right now? Is it possible you may have made some gesture inadvertently and channeled the spirit of Sakon Yamamoto?
My friends. Let's invite you in. There we go.
Are you the ghost of Formula One drivers yet to come?
Yes. I am the ghost of GP2 driver. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it's not that I have no sympathy for the stuff.
No.
Because I do. And I do think there is a talented driver there, but it's clear that the formula we were running under in Formula 1 did not suit him. And that's fine, you know, that happens. There have been plenty of drivers who haven't got their head around Formula 1 who have managed to go on and do great things elsewhere. And vice versa. I mean, like, Michael Schumacher was pretty unspectacular by all accounts in his junior career, but he went on to do... Well, the boy did all right, didn't he? Really?
Yeah, there was nothing.
Boy comes good.
There was nothing that stood out to say that he was going to go on to be as successful as he was. And you can think of other things like Alex Zanardi had a torrid time, obviously in '99, but had done amazing stuff elsewhere. You're right. Different formulas do suit different people. I think the problem for me, or maybe the slight annoyance for me, was that as soon as Stoffel got sacked, he was all right. He was still at the back, but I think then McLaren were a bit tardy at the back by then as well. And I kind of thought, oh, you could have done that a little bit earlier. But even then, he's like, he just has the personality of someone who he's that epitome of you wouldn't.
He has a personality.
Yeah, exactly. You don't look at the fireplace when you're poking the fire. Or whatever it is. I can't remember. Do you know what I mean?
that is the same. But the thing is, like, I mean, now I'm thinking about it. You remember the McLaren documentary that went out on Amazon Prime?
Yes.
I do think, now I look back at it, that if you took out all the bits with him in it, it would actually improve the show. Because I'm thinking about the bits I liked with him in were Fernando Alonso offering to make him a cup of tea when he was nervous before the car was unveiled, and watching him be press briefed by the team while Alonso came in and took his pants off for some reason. And aside from that, like, all this stuff about what it means to be an F1 driver, like, there was a chance for a really interesting story there, but it was all just pictures of him running over a bridge and then him being boring and being very much a McLaren product. I mean, I'm sure McLaren has said it hasn't worked out, not least because, you know, it's disruptive to have to change drivers again, and to change two drivers is particularly disruptive. But he's been in there under their wing for so long that investment not paying off has obviously got to hurt. And he definitely was a McLaren driver in the sense that, you know, he played the corporate game for them quite well.
Yeah.
By being bland and inoffensive. But the problem with bland and inoffensive is that it's bland and inoffensive.
You can't then sell that.
Entertaining.
It's such a blank canvas that you can't then put anything onto it if there isn't skill out on track to like add that personality touch to it. So say if Alonso was really, really bland off of track, but then was still able to pull off those killer moves, you wouldn't mind so much because then you've got the on-track personality to have. But there was that blandness translated into on-track blandness as well, which kind of then made me just go, yeah, I've lost you. So I wish him luck with Formula E. I think it will be very, very interesting. I don't think he'll be back in Formula One. I don't think he'll want to. And I'm genuinely interested to see whether McLaren have any kind of dibs on, if you go on and do very well elsewhere, we profit financially from your winnings or something.
Yeah, me too actually, but I would be surprised. Now, moving on to his teammate before we talk about the team.
Yes.
How Alonso's retirement, do you feel it was kind of anticlimactic somehow? Because it definitely felt that way to me.
I thought it was a bit weird that he gets to be the first person really to go and play donuts and go on to the podium interviews just as a retiring driver. That felt like it was nice, but I don't see why he gets to be the first special one. Oh, there's the obligatory sirens.
Yeah, whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police, as the kids say.
So yeah, it was anticlimactic. He didn't score a point. I was kind of waiting for that Murray Walker, Damon Hill, Britain '97, where he would scream out, or like Brundle would scream, finishing 10th is the best thing after a win. And you're thinking, no, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th would have been good. But it was all anticlimactic. And what was really interesting for me was actually Alonso just enjoyed the moment rather than continued on his quite hilarious bitch fest throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I kind of felt that once he stopped complaining, he stopped caring.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in a good way. That said, he's still, for me, one of the all-time greats. And I think for him to come out only a two-time world champion is a bit of an injustice, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to have harmed his legacy as it could have done with other drivers.
Agree. It's surprising, actually, how his relative lack of success. Sorry, Jeff was just saying that the rain's going to get lighter in 5 minutes.
Oh, God damn it, Jeff.
If that's true, who knows? But yeah, it is fascinating that almost in the same way that Kimi has seemed to transcend his general lack of performance for the last God knows how long, and everyone still rates him really, really well. It's 12 years since he last won a championship, and yet that is still okay, and we still regard him as a great, which I think says a great deal.
Yeah, but with him though, it a lot of it really is about what he says rather than what he drives.
Yes.
You know, like in his youth, in his heyday, I thought he was actually a very exciting driver. But you know, since he won that championship in particular, I mean, I know he had a great comeback with Lotus, but I mean, as a general rule, it's always been about him speaking his mind. That's what's won people over. It's been nothing to do with his driving. And that's actually why I recall being quite happy at him leaving to rallying when he first retired from Formula One.
Yeah, because it felt like he'd already gone off the boil and was bored.
Yeah, it did. And there's something about him that I felt like it got to the point where I'd stopped laughing at him, and I started to think he was kind of bringing the sport into disrepute. And looking back at it now, I feel that was probably an overreaction. But at the time, I remember being quite het up about some of his behaviour, actually. I mean, now I can look back and watch him telling Martin Brundle that he'd gone for a shit as kind of comically endearing. But at the time, I thought he was sort of crossing some lines, and maybe I didn't really get the Kimi personality, but it seemed to me like a lot of people would kill to be where he was, yet he didn't seem grateful to be there. And I'm kind of reassessing that now in the light of the fact that he's signing on to Sauber for a 2-year deal that I don't think really makes sense for either party, to be honest, but somehow it's worked. But the fact that he's done it for the passion of racing and not for the money, because clearly Sauber don't have the money, I mean, at least not to the level Ferrari did, that does maybe make me reassess a little bit that rather harsh judgment I had of him back in the day. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I've never once felt the same way about Alonso, who is actually who we're talking about. Yeah. Tangent. Like, there's never been a phase in Alonso's career where I really felt he wasn't trying. Like, he had some whingy years at McLaren recently, but, you know, he was whinging because he cared.
Yes.
He still got in the car and drove. And so it's odd, really, to think of him not being on the grid next year, but Raikkonen is. Does seem very odd. But also, you know, at the same time, I do feel it's probably time for him to go. It does feel time somehow.
It would. I feel like it would start to become almost cruel if he had to crawl around in yet another year of restructuring for that McLaren. It's particularly at this time of his career. He wants to do other things. I think we're all excited to see what else he does as well, because he's become one of those drivers now that transcends the sport that he's in almost. Because India are all over him, WEC are all over him and love him as well. It's just, it makes sense for him to just go, do you know what? This isn't working, let's try something else, whilst you've got the chance. And you can always come back if McLaren manage to persuade him and go, look, we've actually got a vaguely decent car and Lando Norris is a shitfest. I don't think it will happen. I think Alonso's gone for good.
I mean, well, you know, he can walk to some titles with Toyota in WEC, and I'm pretty sure he'll end up in an Indy car that isn't a McLaren branded one, even though they're ostensibly building a team just for him, which I still think is a monumentally stupid thing to do, and powered by Chevrolet no less.
Yes, I know.
Which we broke as news a week and a half before Autosport did. I'm quite proud of that.
Wow.
They only posted an article about it like the yesterday or the day before.
Yeah. We're so good on the show.
I know, we do alright. And something about a McLaren Chevrolet tie-up is almost as distasteful as a McLaren Renault tie-up.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel
wrong.
right. Yeah.
No, it's one of those. It's two brands that don't fit together. Yeah, but talking about McLaren, actually, well, it seems pretty clear that they gave up on the car quite early on in the year.
Yes.
Because it did have some flashes, that car, where it looked to be an improvement, but I'm told that McLaren consider it to be the worst car they've produced in quite some time.
And I wonder why that was.
Yeah, I get the feeling it's probably because they didn't see much development potential in it. And so already by the end of the season they were putting 2019 parts that they could get away with on the car, and they'd ostensibly given up on it. Which, fair enough, you've got to direct your energy where it makes sense to, but it does feel like McLaren are giving up far too often for a team of their stature.
And far too easy. Because that car, yes, they may have put themselves into a bit of a development corner, but actually that could have rivaled for a good fifth in the constructors had they have kept up some kind of development pace and kept Alonso getting into Q3, Van Dorn, if and when he would ever wake up, getting a couple of points here and there as well. That car, if you go back to Melbourne and so on and so forth, where Alonso was coming home 5th and 6th, admittedly with Haas retirements, you kind of go, there was potential there, but and it slipped back. And when you see how the rest of the field continued to develop, and they did not, you can see just like the train almost of how quickly a car develops over the course of a season.
Yeah, and the other thing for me is that they didn't seem to have the difficulty with the engine that even the Renault team themselves had, which makes me wonder if they were really pushing it.
That's a good
because
point.
it only occurred to me quite recently, but Red Bull took the experimental engines all the time, the specs that even Renault themselves were not running because they didn't believe they were reliable. They thought they were a step forward, but not in terms of reliability. And for Renault it made sense, go for reliability and just try and hold them for 4th in the constructors, which eventually they did. But Red Bull were quite happy to take the experimental specs. I don't know what McLaren did, but McLaren very much do seem to be a customer, and I get the impression that they were just receiving whatever Renault was sending their way. Now, Renault had, it seems, a greater difficulty with their own engine than McLaren did somehow, and I don't know if it's just that McLaren weren't particularly aggressive in their packaging or what, but I just find that an interesting point of note, really. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if they'd given up in more than one sense. And the fact they're going to IndyCar, I just think is completely bananas. It doesn't make any sense to me. Jeff was lying, I think, and I don't think I can beat the time I did.
Ooh, I'm 10th at the moment.
I'm being a chicken, I know, and it's boring for people watching to me just sit in the pits, but the chances of me binning it are relatively high. And I don't think I will beat the time I've done now. I mean, I'm 6/10 clear of Lewis.
Amazing.
But I've always been a bit cheeky in the wet.
Yes,
I'm a slippery devil.
You are a slippery sod. In a good way.
Yeah, and the rain doesn't seem to be letting off. Like, if I thought I could get out on inters and improve, then I would, but it just doesn't seem to be looking like it's going to be inters in this session.
6/10's different at the minute. Well, I know 7/10's different if you look at new tyres, actually, sorry.
So does it make sense for me to go again?
No, not yet. I'm going to hold off for a minute or so, and then I'll go out for one final go. But I think I'm okay. My final thing that I want to say on McLaren is, yes, I completely understand that they've gone for a completely clean sweep. Hello, David Sabalos. Thank you for joining us. Is that with McLaren, I still don't see, if they've been sticking 2019 parts on, that's not really moving them forward. Which kind of makes me think, right, well, the 2019 car is going to be a complete hybrid of poop. and that's not going to be a step forward either. So I will be very, very intrigued to see exactly how that all kind of shapes up.
I'm going to derail the podcast for just a second if I could, because I've just got a really interesting bug. So I moved to Carlos Sainz's seat in my career mode.
Right.
And I just watched Carlos Sainz drive into the pits, and he's wearing my helmet.
Expecting the rain to get better in around 5 minutes.
Ha ha!
That cheeky bugger stole my helmet.
Amazing.
And I was like, Carlos doesn't have an orange and black helmet, does he? And then, no, lo and behold, it was my helmet. What a git. Upset now. Back on track though. Won't hold a grudge. Won't let it derail the podcast.
I'll have to see if he's wearing it for me.
Yeah, well, I'm curious because you're at McLaren in Alonso's seat, right? So I wonder if you watch Alonso when he's out on track. I wonder if he's wearing your helmet.
Well, they've done a new update for 1.15, haven't they? So I wonder if that's a new bug that they've just added on.
Oh yeah, I forgot actually. Oh, apparently the weather's going to change and I've just gone out on wets.
No, it's okay, I've gone out on wets. It said 5 minutes time. Again.
Alright, because yeah, it gave me a warning about being on the wrong tyre. That could also be a bug. You know what Codemasters are like.
That's true. No one else is out there on inters, so it wouldn't matter even if it was the case.
So who's next in the chopping block for us?
So we've done McLaren. Worthwhile to do Williams and get rid of the big fallen duo?
Yes, yeah. Well, much like with Stoffel Van Dorn, it feels difficult to describe their season without feeling like you're kicking them when they're down. Because, I mean, I have nothing good to say about their year at all. For a package that I thought looked nicely aggressive out of the gate, when I saw the renders and I saw the launch pictures, I thought, that looks like some aggressive car packaging, which is exactly what they needed to do.
Yep.
But no, apparently it wasn't what they needed to do. I'd be curious as to whether their old design philosophy would have served them better or not. I suspect it wouldn't have done, which may come as some comfort, but I don't know that for certain.
No, and it took them so long to understand kind of where it had gone wrong. That was also the other thing for me, was that actually when they did kind of go, oh, that's where we have gone wrong and we know now, then it's kind of been a bit of a, what we'll do with that next year. And I'm like, you weren't that far off, like horrifically. Before as it got further on in the season, yes, that team did fall off the back, but actually I think they could have spent a bit more time salvaging stuff now for this season. But it kind of makes me, I defended, and I've defended all year, Sorokin being in that car, but I almost feel like Sorokin's been the stepgap year for them to be able to afford to develop a 19 car and then stuck George Russell in. Kubica I'm very iffy about still, but at least they've got
me too.
like a hard...
I don't think... Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't think it's a good move.
No.
At all.
And my worry with it all, I'm glad I got faster there, I've got up to 6th, because everyone was going a bit quicker. My worry is that, or my annoyance is that Sorokin's basically bankrolled that team to get a much better 2019 and will not be there to have a part of it, when I think that actually drove well enough to deserve another shot. And Lance Stroll, I think, done perfectly well qualifying, race-wise, still can't qualify worth shit, and I think that will cause him problems in 2019 when he's in a midfield team and he's still qualifying where he's qualifying in that Williams.
Indeed, but I have to say, in fairness to Lance, he is definitely the fastest Badger I've ever seen.
Them eyebrows, though.
Yeah, I've never seen a Badger that could drive like that, so he's a credit to his species. It's Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, the temptation with Williams is rather to talk about next season than this season, just because it was so dire. I agree with you. I would have liked to have seen Sorokin get another year.
Yeah.
And I don't even hate the fact that Stroll's on the grid in a different car. I'd be prepared to give him another year in a more competitive car to see what he's really like, because it's not like he had uniformly terrible drives.
No.
You know, I really didn't think he was truly irredeemably awful, but neither did he stagger me. So Jeff's just told me to go out on intermediates, but when I've tried to, the game has told me not to be so foolish. I'm going to ignore the game and go out on inters, and then I'm going to crash and cry. And
it tells me inters are fastest by 3 temps, 6 temps now. Oh, sorry, 3 temps. I'm looking at used tyres.
Yeah, I'm looking behind me, and he's wearing my helmet. That bastard. Should have trademarked it. It's mine.
Yeah, ignore him, good.
Yeah, the temptation really is to talk about next year, and I know we have kind of kicked that horse a little as well, but I would have much preferred to see Russell Sorokin or ideally Russell Ocon, but I appreciate the money wasn't there to make that happen. But can you imagine if they had Russell and Ocon? I mean, that would be a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, and that would give you a decent baseline as well for car development and car performance, because Ocon's been around for a few years, will know how to develop and improve a car because we've seen that Force India go forward, so he'll have been part of that. It would have lined Williams up a little bit more strategically as a Mercedes B team, which I appreciate they won't want to be, but at their current situation, at least they've handled their fall from grace in a much more humble way than McLaren has. My other concern,
no doubt.
My other concern is behind the scenes, though. Rob Smedley has clearly had enough, and it was interesting listening to his Beyond the Grid podcast actually, where he was just saying like, it's just time to spend time with family. I've had my fill of Formula One for now, thanks. And I was like, you can tell that like those years of being weary, as you watch the inevitable slide down the grid. With no Felipe baby to keep you amused, must be quite...
Well, the rumour is of quite a toxic environment there.
Yeah, I have, from some insider contacts, because I was interested in applying for a job there at one point, and I was sworn completely off it because of just how awful the environment is in that place at the moment. And you look to people and the historical stuff like Patrick Head and Co. And how grumpy-assed they are. And you kind of think, well, that's probably the environment that they work in, where it's a shout and get things done. But that doesn't necessarily motivate a team when you're at the back. You need a bit more of a softly, gently put it all in motion rather than a reactionary scream, I guess.
No, I mean that's the sort of reaction you would give if you were a big team that was underperforming. But when you've been at the back of things for a while, ignoring the brief comeback they made, there's a point where shouting and stamping your feet doesn't achieve anything anymore.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and. I am so confused as to what Paddy Lowe is doing.
Well, he's coasting on the success that Ross Brawn laid the foundations for at Mercedes.
Yeah, because what this is showing is that he alone is not El Wunderbar to bring a team all the way back up to the top, because I know, excuse me, he's working on a much more limited budget and so on and so forth, but I can't see what he is doing to bring in like the next wave of talent, the next sorting out of infrastructure. And I'd have expected to have started to have seen some of that take place over the course of the 2018 season to get them ready for the future, since they're taking the hit this year. But I couldn't really see any of that going on, at least outwardly either. So yeah, I'm
no, me neither. I The Kubica thing definitely seems to be money related, because I don't know if you saw the announcement that the big Polish fuel company Lotos are now their fuel partner and sponsor.
Right. Makes sense.
And the fact they said, well, we take Ocon if we had the money, that the reading between the lines there tells you we don't have the money, but we know someone who does.
Yes.
Which I saw someone who shall not be named on Twitter to point out that they've won some money on the one-armed bandit, which I thought was a bit naughty, but it did make me chuckle.
Thank you, John Holmes. I'm not sure if you're taking the piss out of my good driving, because this doesn't feel like good driving at all. Yeah. No, I do like that joke, actually. And that was the other thing that I was thinking of, was actually it's all about the good news story, good publicity, sign up all the Polish sponsors. It doesn't matter if he doesn't necessarily perform well, because of the amount of doors that this opens for them publicity wise. And then if George Russell can land in some bangers, then that gets them some performance money, and then they've got the money behind them to continue whatever restructure it is that they want to do. I
mean, it may turn out to be quite prudent, but I'm just not expecting Kubica to really deliver.
No.
To be honest. So a worrying season, but if they've learnt something from this season, and if Russell can transfer his obvious skills to Formula One smoothly, and maybe Kubica can help develop the car, then maybe there's reason to be optimistic for next season. But I think it's a long way back to even the midfield for Williams at the moment, and it's a team that seems a little bit leaderless still.
Yes.
Despite all the senior staff changes they've had over the last few years. I've got a sneaking feeling that we may be able to switch to dries in Q3,
This has got quicker and quicker, hasn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to go out again because my provisional pole position does not feel remotely safe. And you're gradually getting closer to me, which, as the track dries, you're getting faster and I'm getting slower.
I have a weird setup around this circuit, though, where I've actually got relatively high wings for the track, so I get absolutely annihilated down the straights, but then I can re-outbrake everyone into corners, which probably will mean lots of front wings, but it made me feel good when I was in career mode.
I've been really enjoying my career mode again, actually. At first I thought changing teams was a mistake because I didn't like how the Renault handled, but once I changed the setup, I've been really enjoying it, and I'm going to start streaming it again as soon as I can. Anywho, onwards and upwards. My turn to choose next, and why don't we go with the guys we're driving for, the newly christened Racing Point, who assure us that the name Racing Point is terrible, they know it's terrible, and they're going to change it. Which I was delighted. Out of all the F1 news recently, that them making that statement the other day, that don't worry, it's not a permanent name, that was actually the best news they could have given. They could have announced they've resurrected Gandhi or they've cured cancer, but I'm still genuinely happy that they've committed to changing the name, because Racing Point is an awful name.
Agreed.
However, I am developing a very real fondness for the team, not necessarily the management, previous or current. I think they had a pretty good season, and particularly once the drivers stopped trying to murder each other. I thought that was definitely a step in the right direction. And once the drivers stopped suing the team, for albeit good reasons. I actually thought Ocon and Perez were one of the most exciting pairings on the grid.
Yeah.
And I think I know Ocon's had his reputation tarnished in the last few rounds of the season, but I feel that's a little bit unjust. I think his time at Force India has been a net positive for both parties, despite some occasional drama and dips here and there. I'd love to have seen him retain, but obviously badgers do stick together in the wild, and so it was inevitable that Lance would enter Big Daddy Stroll's den. Now, I'm not going to say it's an outright poison chalice, because obviously that comes with very, very deep pockets, which I think the team needs in lieu of a works engine deal or a more lucrative title sponsorship. I mean, I'm not discrediting BWT at all. Actually, I was delighted to see them step in and title sponsor the team, and obviously put enough money into to secure prominent branding, and it delivered a wonderful pink car for us to enjoy, which is one of the cars that initially was quite divisive, but now seems to be universally loved. And it goes to show, I think, that we were starved of interesting liveries for a very long time.
Agreed.
Perez as well, though, I think it upsets me a little bit in a very minor way that he can't seem to get out of the midfield in terms of the teams he's positioned with. However, it does seem to be his natural habitat. He does seem to be a guy who can outperform expectations in the midfield, who probably wouldn't do so well in a bigger seat. Because I always wanted him to end up in Ferrari. It felt like that was the trajectory his career was on.
Yeah.
That said, I think he had a solid season. I mean, not his best, I wouldn't say, but definitely respectable. And the fact the team managed to gain as many points as they did after being bumped down to 0 is testament to everyone involved.
Absolutely. I think one of the highlights of the season for me was to see either of the Force Indias diving down Kemmel Straight at Spa, having a go at the front guys, almost going for a pincer attack to have 1-2 down into the end of the straight.
Oh yes, yeah.
That had me slightly moist and more than a little erect, I have to admit. And I just to have someone so there's several kind of layers to my love for Force India / Racing Point / whatever it's going to be. So one is that it is a team that continues to work pound to point the most efficiently, and one of the interesting things that came out of that was, yes, now we're more financially secure and that's great, but we still have to be just as efficient, bang for buck, and not let these extra pockets go to our head. Because actually, what we do here works. It's just now we can do a little bit more of it. And wouldn't that be an amazing thing? And I think that's a really good way to look at it, because then they know that the ethos of building a car and getting so far up the grid really works really, really well. They don't need to change the way how they're doing that. They just need to change their approach of how they want to scale up. And Perez, alongside that, won my absolute respect with the whole driver suing a team, having to deal with the politics. He had, for me, the weight of every member of staff on his shoulders and carried that like an absolute champ. And I don't think it can be underestimated what he, BWT and other companies all did to step in and make sure that everyone was able to go home and have food on the table at the end of the day. And it's not often that we get success stories like that, because as you see with Virgin becoming Marussia, sometimes a lot of these things are very, very short-lived, but this one feels like it had to go down the nasty path in the knowledge that it was all going to be fine at the end, and I'm so glad that it was. And then translating that to on-track performances is just the tip of the iceberg. And the fact that they re-caught back up again to, was it 7th by the end of it, I think?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
absolutely superb. So yeah, a lot of love, a lot of respect, and I think they will be a dark horse for 2019, at least in the hands of Perez. It will be interesting what Stroll brings to the table in terms of point finishes next year.
Kissing the wall there, Simon. That was impressive. I enjoyed that.
It's a good
No,
lap as well.
I agree. Like it really does put Stroll under pressure. And his contribution is going to be key, because I agree with you. I think the team have got a platform where they could actually push themselves up amongst the Red Bulls, certainly.
Yep.
That said, I agree. The only thing they had to do was provide the financial stability and then leave it alone. Don't
Yes.
touch anything.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they've lost Bob Fernley, and I that's my only worry for them right now. I think Bob Fernley was quite important in getting to where they are.
Yeah.
And I don't know who Otmar Schnauzer is, but
American.
I really don't think putting a small dog in charge of a highly technical operation was the right thing to do. So I do have some concerns.
Yeah. My other concern, and it's not necessarily for 2019 or beyond, is what happens if they are forever the third and fourth best team, and Stroll either does very well and gets an offer elsewhere, or Stroll absolutely struggles in Formula One and it no longer becomes viable for them, for a team for Daddy to prop him up, and they need to go for bigger and better. Does then Daddy Stroll pull out alongside it, and what happens then? But I don't think that will happen for several years either way.
No, me neither. But I agree with you. Actually, it is an interesting problem that you raised there. That is, ostensibly, he bought the team to make, Racing Point Badger Force Stroll India for his son. And if his son's not in the team for whatever reason, then will he continue to put the money in? I'd hope yes. I mean, he seems to be a very respected and capable businessman, and the fact that so many big companies, significant individuals, investors, and the driver recognised what they have at Force Injury is so good that it was worth saving. I'm hopeful that would happen again in the future should Daddy Badger decide to pull out his considerable financial backing. I think that's probably inevitably going to happen, given that I don't necessarily believe Stroll has the chops to deliver what the car's capable of consistently. But I hope he proves me wrong, actually. Like, if he comes out of the gate and he's like close enough to Perez to be respectable, and that team moves up to third in the constructors, then I'm happy to eat my words and, badger away, my friend. But otherwise, well, there's a lot of risk with it, let's put it that way. Not least the mashed potato bills.
Exactly.
Because everybody knows Badgers love mashed potato.
Shots for Badgers hashtag. Yeah. But I don't, if it means having Stroll on the grid in a Force India or a full Stroll or whatever it's going to be, I'm more than happy to suck that up to have those pinky cars on the grid. More than happy.
So I believe the Pointertron is pointing back at you. Who's next?
Let's go for... Ooh. I was going to say Toro Rosso, but now I'm going to go for Sauber, because I think we can do a Toro Rosso and Red Bull side to side, maybe. Let's go for my Wowbers, as I call them.
Yes.
Love me some Wowbers. And for me, their 2018 season was in a bit of a, I think, foreshadowing for what I hope Force India / Racing Point will do in 2019. Is this will show exactly whoa what that you still came out of that really well. it will show you exactly what a budget, and direction will give your team for improvement over time. Admittedly, some of that was, and in fact most of it apparently was engine related, because they were saying that they haven't really updated the Sauber particularly much all year. Nice.
They also said they managed to get the tyres working. I remember Leclerc saying that, well, we're not actually putting new parts on the car, it's that we're learning how to make the parts we've got work better. So yeah, that's just a tangent, a side note for you there. Carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Perfect. No, go for it. But again, that's coming back to having the resource and the direction and the money to be able to invest into saying, right, we've got this, how can we make this work better? How can we work more efficiently? And it reminds me of the Saubers of 94, 95, of 2001, 2002, and of the BMW era to some extent as well, where they've come back to being a sharp outfit that know where to invest, know where to put their energy and expertise. And Leclerc absolutely grabbed it by the scruff of his neck and went absolutely nuts with it. I'm so pleased that he's off to Ferrari next year. I think it'll be a shot in the arm to the front of the field that we desperately need in Formula One. To shake it up, baby. And I think Ericsson done nothing but improve his stock over the course of the season for being that close in race conditions, if not necessarily in qualifying conditions, to someone right at the front of the field who we think is a potential champion.
And scoring points after compromising his race to let his teammate through, which genuinely impressed me as well.
Yes.
No, I agree. There was actually a poll on the official F1 Instagram the other day asking fans which of the 4 teams listed did they think improved the most, and the choices were Renault, Sauber, Force India and Haas. And I was surprised by how many people were arguing for the other teams. It's one of those things that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you know, occasionally, like, we're just laymen, right? We don't understand all the fancy sciencey stuff that really smart, important scientists understand, right? So you kind of take them at the word, but then occasionally they'll say something, and you'll go, whoa, back up there, glasses. That doesn't make any sense. You have to justify that. I'm not going to take your word for it. Like, when a scientist will say, well, we only perceive time as moving like this. Actually, time happens all at once, and this is just how we experience it. And you think, that is bullshit. Don't care how smart you are or how your maths add up on the that's just demonstrably bullshit. And I felt the same way about people who were saying, well, I think Haas have been the most improved team. And it's like, well, they had really great pace for a lot of the season. However, the end result at the end of the year, I don't think was the improvement they aimed for.
No.
And, Renault have finished this season higher than they have the previous 2, so you could argue they've made improvements too. But, I mean, really, their car's kind of gone off the boil at times because I think they shifted development to next year. Force India have been performing at roughly the same level they were last year, which is still a very high level. So I don't know how anyone could vote for anyone other than Sauber, because, I mean, all kinds of improvements have been made, even down to them putting their pit box at an angle to save a fraction of a second during a pit stop by making sure their drivers don't have to turn so sharply. It has been a fantastically well-deserved and just glorious season for Sauber, in my opinion. Massive improvements in the car and in the operation of the team, much more financial stability. 2 drivers that I think were delivering pretty consistently. Finally, a power unit that is at the specification of the competition around them.
Yes.
And the fact that the developments they did bring to the car were all successful developments shows that they haven't lost any of the... Like, they were right all through those hard years where, they switched off some machines. They didn't take part in some areas of car development, but they kept the people who knew how to do it. And I think that's been justified. They're my favourite team. and there have been since Arrow's liquidated. I am unbelievably delighted with the season, and I have nothing but good things to say about them, about Frederick Vasseur, about both the drivers. I completely agree with you 110% regarding Leclerc going to Ferrari. I think Vettel is going to have a fire lit under him, the likes of which he is probably not prepared for. And as long as Ferrari don't insist on compromising Leclerc to keep Vettel happy, and I really don't see them doing that, then I think we could be seeing something really special. And I don't think Sauber are going to go backwards next year either. I think Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen are going to have a solid midfield competitor underneath them. And I think actually a lot of Sauber's fortunes in the next few years depend very much on how awake Kimi's feeling.
Yeah.
And whether he can actually develop that car. Because I do have a worry that Kimi could end up being a albatross around their neck.
He could, the weak link in the chain who's kind of coasting / enjoying his final few minutes of Formula One, but that's not necessarily what they're after.
No, and nor should it be. I was actually surprised they took him on, to be honest. I mean, it's a great PR story, don't get me wrong, but I was nevertheless surprised to see it come to pass, because I didn't think it really made sense for Sauber to become a driver's retirement home.
No.
Oh, I don't have time to go again because I've drained my ERS. But I am on form today.
You are. You're proper kicking it.
The car feels good. I keep finding time, and I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I know the track's drying and everything, but before we went live, I was doing some laps in dry conditions, and I'd drive what I thought was quite a tame lap, and I'd look up and see that I was 0.3 faster than a lap that felt like the best I could possibly extract. The car just seems to be getting better and better, so
nice.
Good, because I've got some points gap to close to you.
Yeah, and I know I think you are faster than me around here, but yeah.
I'm curious to see what your last lap comes out at, because you may still pick me for pole because the track's getting faster and faster, but I can't put another lap in.
Well, I'm going around on a 0 ERS, but I can't afford to go slowly, so I'm going to take some stuffing out of my tyres, but still hopefully be okay for... Mind you, I've just done a purple sector 1 on 0 ERS.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I think my pole is very... I went out too early, I think.
Oh, Christ.
I think my shot at pole has evaporated.
Just 30 seconds left in the session.
I should have done a cooldown lap, but the problem was that I saw how much faster I was, and I thought, oh, I should put this on the board, really. Let's see how... I don't know, I'm 1.3 seconds faster. Oh, but wow, only you and I have set times on the Hypersofts. Surely not everyone's still out on Inters. Surely.
I don't think they are.
No. Alright, but yeah, everything's going to be shaken up now. Yeah, I'm not confident I'm going to hold on to this.
I got over the line with 2 seconds to spare.
So you've got another lap to do?
Yep.
You cheeky rascal. Because you've closed the gap to me to 5/10.
I completely cut a corner though. And it should have been slower, but it felt like it was probably faster. So I need to make sure that this lap is better. I've got
Kevin Magnussen on pole. Oh no, I'm going to start 10th.
P6, now once you've into P6.
Because I went too far. I went too fast. Oh yeah. Oh. Fuck everything. Fuck all the things.
Dude. Just go and be juicy.
Oh shit. Oh well, I'm just going to put on some hard tyres and I'm going to do my time.
Fifth.
God damn it all. I'm smack bang in the middle of the field, which is exactly where I didn't want to be.
No. Dem AI coming for you.
I've been robbed of my pole again.
You have.
The game does not like me being on pole. Except when I'm drinking alcohol for some reason, which I'm technically not supposed to do.
No.
Oh well. Because now it looks like, if you just looked at the screenshot from qualifying 3, it looks like I'm a complete buffoon because I'm 2.2 seconds off pole. Oh, well that's an important lesson there. I should have turned my ERS off and done the cooldown lap and not been greedy.
That's what I did. But you then kind of think, well, what if I bungle up the next lap? So you don't.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, and I saw how much faster I was already, and I thought, Okay, next up, shall we talk Renault?
Oh, just before we do, can we just briefly chat Merrickson and how amazing it is that IndyCar seem to be treating him like royalty since he has now gone off to IndyCar, and they're calling him the fastest Swede and doing all kinds of weird and wonderful things, talking about how amazing he is. And I think we were saying just before we went live, you said you've seen more press of him in the last few weeks than you have in the last 5 years of Formula One.
Yeah, very true. But it did delight me to see him like all high def and looking very high class swanky time. Oh, I cut myself off there by noticing that apparently stopping twice isn't that much slower.
No, it's not. Short pit lane, isn't it?
I might edit my stratage.
I might be doing the same.
Because I think I want to start on a harder tyre. How's that looking? Okay, not good. Okay, how about that? No, not happy with that either. I've messed that up completely. See, I don't want to start on the hypersofts. That feels like a mistake.
So I'm going to go ultra hyper and do 13 13 9.
Yeah, I mean that's tempting. I always like to finish on the faster tyre.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel also like I'd quite... See, this is interesting. This is an interesting strategy debate now. Because I'm also thinking, well, what happens if I just start on supers and finish on ultras? Mm-hmm. But then I'm thinking, well, if I take too much out of my tyres, I'm going to have to stop anyway. And if the stop is not planned, then the strategy's compromised, and you who plan to stop will be on fresher tyres and will beat me.
I'm just thinking, how many front wings am I going to lose?
Yeah, do you know, I'm going to go the opposite way to you. Or what about this? Thinking outside the box. Not my forte, but what about apparently the game thinks this is a ridiculous idea, but I was thinking, what about super hyper?
Oh, yeah.
But the game tells me it's 3.4 seconds slower at best, which feels like a lie. But that is what it's telling me. Do you know, for once, I'm not going to have any imagination. I'm going to do what the game tells me. I think I'm going to... I'm holding up the podcast. I'm going to bore everybody, but I really don't know. Because I feel like I could win here, or at least get a podium, so I don't want to find I've ballsed it up by taking the wrong strategy. And I'm so tempted to do a one-stopper, because it's not like I'm terrible on my tyres, but I like the cushion of having an extra set of tyres to call upon. And if I commit to the two-stop strategy, I can't revert it to a one, because there's a hyper stint and they're just too short-lived.
What about just start on ultras and see how you feel? Although it does put you at the mercy
I'm no
of Jeff.
good on the fly. I'm no good on the fly. I'm gonna just go with what Jeff says.
Not pretty fly for a northern guy. Bye-bye.
Exactly. So I'm told.
What do I want to do? I want to start the race, you idiot. El Formación. So, back to you, good sir, for the next team.
Yes. I want to talk about Renault, who, for my money, still have the best-looking car on the grid.
Agreed.
I kind of felt I was somewhat disappointed with Carlos Sainz's season. Not that I'd say he outright did a terrible job, because there were certainly some races where he was screwed a little bit by his strategy. I remember there was one race where I saw him on hard tyres, and he was the only person to run that compound, and it made no sense, and it made him really, really slow. And that was a decision the team took.
I completely agree. They kept doing this weird pit him really early and then stick him at the back of the field on harder tyres to kind of cycle back through, but he was getting caught up, unable to get past the traffic that were doing like the long stint early, which was kind of like where you were saying that Ericsson was having to sacrifice his strategy for others. They kept on starting him on the harder tyres so that he would then kind of be stuck at the back of a train, but then Sainz would kind of join him vaguely and on that train after his stop, and then they'd be stuck there at the back together, kind of thing. And that's not very helpful.
No, it's not. So I don't lay it all at his door, really.
I'm inside Bottas.
Ooh, misses. Carry on racing. That said, I still think Hülkenberg is doing a very, very solid job. I'm interested to see how it goes for him against Ricciardo next year.
Oh yes.
Because he himself says he needs to find an extra gear going up against Ricciardo, but I'm also curious if Ricciardo's transition to Renault will be a smooth one. That's something I find very, very interesting, about whether he can maintain that was a very long red light, about whether he can maintain the level of performance we were seeing from him. That was a really crappy start, but I was determined not to lose my front wing, and I nearly did, because Magnussen braked super, super early again.
I've just had Bottas clip me. I was perfectly clean and he's hit me.
The AI in this game is actually really, really hard to deal with. That's why I was so upset about starting 10th, because you can't overtake them even cleanly in a lot of cases, because even if you're in front going into the corner, they'll still go straight for the racing line and take you out.
Yep.
Okay. Right, now I have to make these hypers count. So I'm not going to be very chatty for the first the first few laps. But I have got round Grosjean without twatting Magnussen, so that's good.
That's a miracle.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Renault. They gave up on the car as well, didn't they? A bit like McLaren.
Yeah, which really confused me, because they didn't... it was just, some circuits it works better on than others when they were having really good races. And they seemed to put it down to, was it low speed corners they were good or bad at? I can't remember which one it was, but I kind of felt like, you're pretty lucky then that you've been able to grab fourth in the constructors if you've abandoned this year's car quite early again. So I think...
Yeah, I'm still trying to see the season as a net positive for Renault, actually, because it is... You could sort of classify it as an underwhelming season, but they've still gone from 9th to 7th to 4th in the constructors, so, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, I mean, obviously, partly that's down to Force India being destroyed,
yes.
But it is still what it is. It's still a massive improvement, and it will make the board happy, even though half of them are in prison now.
Indeed. I wonder if they'll have to do like a little chain shackle around the nose cone for next year.
Well, I'm more concerned actually about whether their support for the F1 project continues at the level it was at, because the guy who's gone to prison was the one who brought them into Formula One.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because I thought... I know has already said that they've had their funding and stuff all confirmed, but I know what you mean. It's
they have, but I mean, if the guy ends up in prison, then his decisions can be challenged, I think, and I'm sure Cyril is acutely aware of that. But I am curious to see which way it goes, because they've entered Formula E under the Nissan brand, because Nissan and Renault are in some kind of bizarre alliance now where they're ostensibly separate companies but also sort of not.
Yeah. I know what you mean. There's a couple of things there for me in that. What was I going to say? I've forgotten now. Don't mind me.
Yeah, it's hard when you're driving, isn't it?
It's because I can see Raikkonen and Bottas going at it, and it doesn't look like it's going to end well for either, and it hasn't. I'll have third then, thank you very much. Idiots.
I see you.
Shaking that ass. For me, that's what I was going to say. So now that Red Bull have gone to the Rising Sun, Konnichiwa-san, it's an interesting future for them to now be the top Renault team, which I know sounds a bit weird.
Yes,
but
it's the first time since they came back that they are the...
They are now their de facto leader of everything else, and that's going to be interesting, because then now that they've got rid of their customer team that was beating them but was also exceptionally vocal about how terrible they were, I wonder how that then steers their development for the future on their engine package as well as other things. Because McLaren...
I just want to say, your traction out of that corner was phenomenal.
It's my high wings that's the problem. Oh, God. That racing line was a fucking problem. There we go.
We're in a DRS train, it's scary.
Hamilton is on super softs, who's just taken the lead from Vettel.
Raikkonen nearly took me out there while I was trying to get past him. I'm tempted to pit because I feel I'm faster than all three of you, not to brag.
You will be faster,
and I don't think I can get past. It's really hard. Like, overtaking one car in this game is actually quite difficult because of the AI, but overtaking 2 or 3 is impossible.
And I'm only going this fast because I'm on rich mixed fuel free.
There's just like a brief second where Raikkonen just... his car like gets down on its hunkers and just blasts off, and then I catch him up towards the end of the straight, but by then it's too late to get by him.
Uh-huh.
And the Durs is like, he's got defensive Durs. Looks like you're having a cozy time up there with Bottas.
Yes.
Are we done with Renault?
I think so.
Is there anything more we want to say apart from the fact I still think it's a very, very sexy livery, and I hope they don't ruin it like they ruin their team wear. You know, it felt like someone went into a meeting room and went, "Yellow and black looks really good. But what happens if we got rid of the black and made it white?" And everyone goes, "Oh wow, doesn't that look washed out in comparison and a little unimaginative?" Yeah, maybe we should use it.
It's like when someone in Cadbury's has decided that actually they can use the same colour palette with their white chocolate as they can with their dark, and it's not quite worked out. Ooh, Fulf. Suit you, sir.
Suit you, sir. Suit you. Can turn my engine mix down now. I just wanted to get in front of the AI because they're very naughty boys.
A bit like me there, where I knew I was going to smash it over the curbs.
I'd rather you cut a corner than smash it.
Bangers and
You live another day because I'm going to be on the ultras soon. You're ahead and on a longer lived tyre. So, how are your tyre temperatures, by the way, Cocker?
I will tell thee. 99,
okay.
97. Yeah, I've got a 1 on 100.
So towards the end of your stint, you might overheat a little bit, I guess.
This is what happened in career mode. Was the last 5 laps on my tyres were terrible. Oh, don't tell me about a change of strategy, Jeff. Fuck off. Keep current.
Jeff just told me I can keep my tyres on a while longer, and he's right.
Ooh, yellow flag. Someone's out.
I think you may actually have my number here because you've got such great traction out of that sharp corner that my speed advantage on the straight, I can't make up the difference.
We'll see. Well, when I cook my tyres, you'll be fine.
No, I mean it's a genuine compliment. Your car actually looks really good out of that corner. I just drove through a cloud of your like grass clippings though.
Thought I'd mow some lawns.
Steady there, lawnmower man. Who's our next victims? Because we want to have enough time to talk Formula E.
Toro Rosso?
Yeah, fuck it, why not? I think for the team, actually quite a good season.
Oh, who's that out? Not the leader.
I backed out there because I thought we were under yellow flags and I'd get a penalty for overtaking under yellows. You see how sporting I am?
Thank you very much, good sir.
Right, this has to be a very good in-lap now. I actually think for the team, quite a positive season, even though they've been sacrificed at the altar of the mothership a little bit, trying to get this Honda unit ready. I also think it's definitely been a year of very solid redemption for Honda, who have impressed me actually with their ability to dig themselves out of the hole McLaren apparently buried them in.
Yes.
That was definitely one of the positives of the season for me. I'm still ambivalent on the whole Brendan Hartley thing, because I have a fondness for Brendan, but I can't honestly hand on heart say that keeping him on would have been the decision I would have made if I wasn't making the decision somewhat emotionally. But I also kind of feel like he deserves an extra chance, given that he seemed to find something towards the end of his time at Toro Rosso that he was lacking previously.
Yeah, my problem with Hartley is that he had the speed, He did not have the ability to put it all together like over the course of a weekend, though. Oh, that was weird. Your calf kind of flashed in front of me, even though you was in the pits.
Bruh.
Yeah. Boo! Halloween was 2 months ago. And that's kind of where Hartley kind of fell down a bit for me, was that he had the pace, couldn't quite string it all together, quite how Gasly was able to kind of pop out random results here and there. I feel like it's going to end up being one of those, I'll hear about this story in 15 years' time, where we'll find out just how compromised perhaps Hartley's season was as a result of Gasly and the potential favouritism in there, because we all know that Hartley was there basically as, didn't we call him the butt plug?
Yeah, we called him the butt plug.
Yeah.
Which I still think is quite an apt term. Like,
Agree.
not to be offensive to Brendan, but you know, whoever ended up in that seat would have been a butt plug. It's not a Hartley specific term.
No, completely agree. I think Gasly done well. I still can't decide whether or not I'd have still probably have popped signs in that car over Gasly if I was Dietrich Mattercrap, but I think maybe those bridges were already a wee bit burnt from before.
It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? What did you make of Gasly's season?
Topsy-turvy, but with highs that were high enough to peak out. It's always that thing where if you can get, I think, and I know you've said this before, he was able to ride on that Bahrain position, I think, for a bit too long. Hungary was impressive for me as well, and there were some good performances, but then also like in Abu Dhabi, I think there was a good example of it. He also comes across as someone who has not quite tamed his own emotions down, and I find that being very interesting when he's going to be Max's teammate next year, because it's going to be like daddy daycare as Christian Horner, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. I actually am surprised how little faith I have in Gasly to deliver Red Bull. And I still think he did have some great highs, but it also seems to be down to the fact that Toro Rosso have a magic car.
Yes, I know what you mean.
That if the stars are aligned perfectly, then it works like a dream, and then the rest of the time it's nowhere. I've lost loads of time because I made a move on Sainz. He cut me off. I moved so I didn't lose my front wing, and it counted as an illegal overtake, and then he wouldn't go past me.
Oh no.
I didn't get a penalty. He got past me in the end, but I lost like 3 seconds, I think, which is not what I needed to do.
No, I've now fallen back into the clutches of Kimi, where my tyres have gone off and I can no longer go in mix free. But
yeah, I'm trying to play the long game, but it's not really working for me. But I've caught up to Alonso, so I'm running 9th at the moment. So I don't know. If Toro Rosso can find what it was that made their car capable and build upon it, I think once Red Bull are running the Honda units as well, and there's something to be extracted from all this, I actually could see next season being the start of an upturn in form for Toro Rosso, whereas it will definitely represent a downswing for Red Bull, I think, and that's when you really learn what's going on with Max, I think.
yes.
Because his patience with Renault ran thin pretty quickly, and it definitely seemed to me that all this talk he's been making about Honda being the power unit that will allowing to challenge for the championship is big talk delivered far too early, and if the downturn in form is as significant as it could potentially be, and that I wouldn't lay that at the door of Honda necessarily. I just think any team changing power unit supplier is going to go through some.
Oh, they're changing my front wing, and I didn't ask them to.
But Bottas just completely flew into the pits. I mean, like, he went in at full whack. He nearly crashed into me.
Let's get some heat into those tires.
Excellent. Well,
Bit of a buggy game today.
It is.
But, I got past that helmet-stealing bastard, so... Oh, Max, I'm so much faster than you. Why won't you get out of my way? Just get out of the way. We're coming up to the halfway point in the Grand Prix, so let's pick up the pace a little bit, because we do want to talk Formula E, even though it's Failcast F1. Shall we move on to Red Bull then, since we talked Toro Rosso? Because I was already starting to talk about them, really, and I do think the Honda tie-up could ultimately be a good thing, but it does also seem to me quite likely I just damaged my front wing in the most stupid way possible.
Oh, and I've just got a puncture off your debris.
No! It's Verstappen's fault. I don't know if you saw us come together, but it's definitely his fault.
I'm out.
Oh no!
Engine off.
Oh,
that was
I thought we were both on there.
That's hilarious. I didn't even feel like I rode. I didn't even feel like I rode over that debris actually, but there we go. Oh, safety car.
That's good.
I might have inadvertently helped you out there.
Yeah. Box this lap.
Max Verstappen's in the pits.
Super softs. I fucking hate this virtual safety car bullshit. If the safety car's out, don't give me the delta. Oh man, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. That's just exactly the kind of day I've had. So it's just made me giggle. Oh, what's happened now?
I was going to get a penalty for not driving to the delta.
Ah, okay.
Stupid in delta. To make sure I don't drive over the debris now. Because I saw a bit of presumably your front wing in the middle of the road.
Probably half a carcass, to be fair. Everyone's pitted.
Right, yeah, I'm going to lose places here though because I have to change my wing.
That's all right. You've got the speed.
Yeah, I've lost out to the McLarens and one Renault. Renault double boxed, which saved me some embarrassment. Can they overtake me on the pit exit, I wonder, under the safety car?
No, it's where you rejoin as you come out of the line, so you've beat Grosjean there. Well done.
So I've somehow managed to come out in basically the same position I was. That's intriguing. Right, now I need to make sure I turn everything to low.
Yeah, because then you can flex free it.
I am gutted about that, mate, because it was such a stupid accident on my part as well. Because if you watch my footage back on board later, and I urge you to do so, Max was like not just slow, but like abnormally slow. And I went round the inside of him at the hairpin, and he just turned into me sharply and took off half my wing. And that's obviously what you then drove over. I had something similar happen to me in Baku in my career mode actually. Van Dorn binned it into the wall, and I got a puncture that I could not possibly recover from. It just totally threw me into the barrier.
Wow.
But yeah, we were talking Red Bull before that unpleasantness.
Yes. I'm super intrigued as to what will happen. I think Red Bull season is characterised won by a driver who is utterly brilliant when he's not throwing it off the track. And thankfully this year he did seem to decide after the first 6 races how to not throw it off the track, and that was great. Whereas the other guy then seemed to just have mechanical failure after mechanical failure and then go a little bit off the boil. So they always felt like a one-car team. And
yes, I agree.
It's a bit strange because I've not done it, but I feel like I want to go back and look at all of the points that they've lost, because they could have both been third in that championship. They could have both probably outscored Bottas and really, really ruined his whole thing, safety car in the slap. And I think Verstappen still did outscore Bottas, but Ricciardo could have done it as well. And you just kind of go, what a messy year. And I think next year will only be worse. And you're right about that whole like pressure cooker situation. I think it's only going to become nasty next year if it doesn't come out of the box decent. I reckon they'll give it half a season, and then if it's not good, they'll go nuts. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Nice restart.
Nothing, because I'm so nervous out of the corners. I thought about having a look there, but I just end up going into the back of Bottas. I can't overtake them when they run so closely together.
Mm-hmm.
I have to bide my times.
It's alright. You got this, champ.
But that safety car may hand me back a podium if I play it right. Because I think they all have to stop again. Well, Alonso doesn't, but I think the rest of them do.
Everyone came in and they're all on. In fact, I'll scroll up for you. Let's have a look. Alonso's super softs. Bottas is ultras.
So he has to stop again for sure.
Sainz ultras. Magnussen super soft. Super soft. What's ultras for Ricciardo, super softs for Vettel, and Hamilton started on super softs and is now on ultras and he's just romping away with it.
Yeah, I don't think I'll win because there's too much traffic between me and him, but I am hoping for a good result now. I just have to make sure I don't bin it or twat into Bottas. No, I completely agree. I'm still a little bit bitter about what happened for Red Bull at Baku. I don't think Verstappen was taken to task publicly enough for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the first time I've seen driving be petulant. Like, his attitude's always been petulant, but his driving was petulant in that Grand Prix.
Yes.
I could just imagine his punchable little face while he was being an obstinate prick.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I think his second half of the season has been utterly phenomenal, and it shows why he is so highly regarded.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Get out of my way, peasants.
Completely agree. I think the other thing as well is the fact that he's not been taken to task over his driving and doesn't know when to quit, I think contributed to his part in him and Ocon coming together in Brazil. And if he continues to take that stance of woe is me, everyone else is wrong, we'll only have more of the same come again in the future. And I wonder how I'm trying to think of the right words. I wonder how many times Red Bull will be happy with that to take place if that continues to be a trend. Might not be. Ooh!
I got quite good at doing that in career mode. It's naughty, I know it's naughty, but sometimes the gap is just enough for you to get away with it.
Oh, he's coming back.
Yes, he is, and he's knocked me wide.
Little shitbag. Ah.
That's what I'm talking about, though. Like he just drove into me. Eat it.
Oh, locked wheels. You're okay.
No, he's driving into the side of me. Let's turn up the ERS and the DRS and see if I can't... There we go.
Nice. And K-Meg and Signs are having a proper squabs, so you'll be right on them straight away because they were slow out of the corner. Grosjean's pitted. That's good. Ooh, cheeky, but well done. And then they've clutched each other anyway, so that's good. Nice.
Yeah, well, I'm losing so much time that I thought, like, I have to be a bit of a dick there because I lost a lot of time to the leaders stuck behind them. And hopefully now I can prove that was true by leaving them in the dust. For a brief second there, I thought that was Van Dorn ahead of me, and I was thinking, is this some parallel universe? Am I high on ketamine?
No. He has been
Only horse tranquilizers could explain him running in fourth. So that leaves us really with Haas and the big two, doesn't it?
It does.
That we haven't covered.
Should we do the half-asses?
Yes, why not? And they were half-assed, weren't they?
I think so. In a good way.
The only part of that team that I felt was firing on all cylinders most consistently was Magnussen.
Yeah, and the bullshit meter on Günther Steiner.
Yes.
Either or. I've never really been like a massive or like a fan of K-Mag particularly, and I still think some of his driving is borderline dangerous, but I've got more respect for him this year because of his dogged determination and his ability to... He's not quite as fast as Grosjean, like in terms of outright speed, but the consistency, his approach to how he goes about a weekend, ability to not throw it into the fence every fucking race as well, is quite good too. So, no, quietly impressed with K-Mags. And I did actually think early on this season he was going to end up being best of the rest in Category B of Formula 1. And it wasn't quite the case because the car, again, a bit like Renault and McLaren, they had those weird races where the car's just nowhere. Like, why is it always crap at Mexico every year and Monaco as well now?
Yeah, it is an odd one, that, isn't it? And I don't think they're entirely sure why either. That looks very much like Daniel Ricciardo forgot to pit.
That is true.
During the safety car.
He is in... Yeah, he's put on another set of ultras, sorry. So Leclerc's been in. I think everyone else in front of you will need to... is going to the end. So you're now in a straight race with everyone.
Awesome. Well, I think Raikkonen's in the bag. The other two might be a bit of a stretch, but I think eventually, once I've recharged my ERS, I think I can get Raikkonen. And that will do me some good on the old points.
Yes. Nice.
Nearly lost it there.
Now looking back on Grosjean's season, I still feel completely nonplussed about it. I was nonplussed at the time, and I was like, oh, he'll come round. Then I was like, maybe he won't come round. And now I'm a bit like, ugh, it's so frustrating.
How he has got a drive next season and Esteban Ocon has not is... It's going to go down as one of the great mysteries, like the Marie Celeste. It makes no sense because Haas do have the money to pay Ocon. Mm-hmm. And, I remember seeing on-board footage of Grosjean being asked if he could do donuts as well in Abu Dhabi, and he was told no, and then did them anyway.
Yes.
And I was thinking, the only thing that would put the icing on this turd cake would be if you binned it while doing the donuts you were specifically told not to do, and then get on the radio and go, why did Ericsson do that? Because it's just been a disastrous season, and it's not like last season was much better for him either, and it's been 3 seasons now for him at Haas where he's he's underperformed, or he's dropped the ball far more often than he should have been allowed to, and I don't know why they've stuck with him. And I say that as someone who was a Grosjean fan, actually, by all accounts. I did think there was a lot of promise to him once he got his head straight at Lotus.
Yeah,
and I actually thought when Renault took over the team, they'd end up taking him back, you know, the French connection and all.
Yes.
Yeah, I braked too soon and knew he was going to fly into the corner. I hit my wheel, but I'm glad that my wings stayed intact.
Nice. Yeah, so for me, I completely agree with what you're saying. I know that's boring for the podcast. It also makes me remember it's 10 years since his debut in 2008. He shouldn't be dropping the ball that often, again and again and again, in increasingly more absurd circumstances. And I wonder if we could add up the amount of points that he's lost over the last 3 seasons for Haas. He's coasted on some really good results at the beginning of 2016, and a couple of strong ones in 17 as well. But then he was up against goddamn Gutierrez.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's not really anything to boast about, is it? It's like, you know, well, I out-qualified Dame Thora Hurd in her stairlift. It's like, well,
Hamilton's pit.
Ooh.
He shouldn't have done. He should have been fine. He's gone on to Ultras, is that? Yeah, he's gone on to Ultras. That's silly. He had the ties to go home.
Codemasters, what have you done?
So Seb is on Super Soft as well. He pitted when you pitted. So in theory, he shouldn't pit. But who knows now? You could have this one in the kebab, mate.
It would be vindication for the injustice of qualifying.
Yes.
But I actually think Lewis is going to catch us and fly past. They seem to have improved his AI with every patch in this game. And you know what? We might as well talk about him, eh?
Yeah, go on then.
Because as much as parts of his personality grate on me, I have to agree with the assessment that he's driving the best he's ever driven, arguably. And, you know, a lot of that, of course, is down to the car. Raikkonen's turned up his fuel and ERS, I think, because he's looking very racy.
Yes.
And I don't have the ERS to fight him, so I'm just going to have to hope that by being a bit of a dick through the corners, I can carry more speed than him. I'm faster through this corner, for sure. So I can definitely respect what he's been doing. I'm completely bored to death of Mercedes winning everything.
Yeah.
That I have fundamentally had enough of, although I can't find it in my heart to hate them for it, because really, you know, this is what F1's about and has always been.
No, completely agree. It reminds me of the early Ferrari's days in the early 2000s when they were stomping all over everything. Although even then it didn't feel quite as dominant as what this does. Yes, Lewis is driving as well as he has ever done. He's also talking just as much crap as he's ever done as well, which is why it makes it sometimes a bit difficult to stomach, or more difficult to stomach, I guess. Someone's crashed. It's Ericsson's pulled off. Okay. Dang it. Be prepared.
I need to get out of Durr's range of this. Oh, fuck. I'm going to lose loads of time now because I can't drive to the Delta because I'm incompetent and not a talented driver.
So Marcus Ericsson pulled off the track. Lance Stroll just drove slam into the back of him and lost his front wing. That's why that happened.
Art imitating life, I suppose.
Yeah.
But this is a good chance to recharge my ERS.
Yes,
Do I
was gonna
stop?
say. No.
Oh no.
Do not stop.
Don't give me a penalty, you motherfuckers.
Go, go, go. Ooh, there's Yeah, Spamela's coming for you all. What else was I going to say about him?
About Hamilton or Mercedes, because Bottas has had a season to forget.
Yes, that's what
In fact,
I
I've
was
already
going to say.
forgotten it.
Yeah, it's been so horrific. The wingman comment is so justified. I think what's really annoying for Bottas is that if he'd have won in China, if he wasn't done over by the safety car, if he'd have finished in Baku, I think he would have been leading the World Championship at that point. I wonder what that would have done for his confidence to keep his season going, as opposed to being just flown straight into de facto numero 2. And maybe we would have had a very different Bottas for the rest of the season, but he can't have the same thing again in the first half of 2019, because he will be out of that seat like a shot.
Yes, yeah, he will. I mean, I'm curious about whether he has a Rosberg style comeback, because Rosberg had some bad bad years, but always found a way to bounce back. And I wish I had more ERS. I'm running out of tricks here. I was in DRS range of Vettel, but I wasted it because I was defending against Raikkonen.
It's all good. It's all good. He'll soon be battling with Hamilton, so don't worry. Stay cool, Taco friend. Stay cool. I'm bringing you the Sriracha sauce.
I like that you're race engineering me, though. That's always encouraging.
Well, if our favourite friend in the chat isn't there to help you today, because we're on a Thursday, someone's got to.
Do you know, I keep forgetting it's Thursday. I'm so used to doing this thing on a Saturday that it feels like a Saturday. Right, very quick summary of Ferrari, because we want to talk Formula E and we're almost at the end of the cast now.
Yes.
Although I am providing some incredibly titillating racing action here in the final laps.
It's fab. For me, Ferrari are an organisation that didn't trust itself and lost its way. And that is either through the death of Marchioni, or through Vettel having his own internal breakdown.
Yes, very much so.
Or Kimi just kind of
Oh, almost had a heart attack there.
My sphincter lived every second of that. Christ. Top job. I thought that was going to end in all of the cheers. So, well
Me
done.
too, but I've been practicing, and if I'm within just enough of a distance, there seems to be a point on the side of the car where if you're enough ahead or you're carrying enough speed, they kind of back out. So it's 50-50 whether it goes well or ends in tears. But as Daniel Ricciardo says, sometimes you just got to lick the stamp and send it. And my tyres are getting a bit overheated and I'm low on ERS, and I thought, well, if I don't get past him there, I'm not going to get past him.
No. Ham's just got past Kimi, so he's coming.
Yeah, and I want to put some distance between me and the hamster. Because, I'm going to be marginal for fuel now. I've burned so much trying to keep up with him.
Wow.
That I might have to go down to low lean fuel mix. And then I have to just make my car very fat. So, no, I agree. I kind of feel like it should have been Ferrari's season, but Vettel let them down, and Kimi's been... I'm glad he had got a win under his belt this season, but he's been largely unspectacular.
Yeah. And it was interesting is that, for me, for Kimi, I sat there watching the entire Monza Grand Prix thinking, I wish he was this feisty every weekend. Because he had the sniff of victory and he wakes up, and then you see this completely different driver and you think, where have you been these last 4 years? Because you've just been dull as dishwater. You've been Van Dorning it at the front of the field, and that's the problem. And so as soon as there's the sniff of victory, all of a sudden this prowess comes out of nowhere, And I want more of that, please, Kimi. I'm worried about if he's just as half asleep in the midfield for Sauber, because he doesn't overtake very often. He generally goes backwards at the start of a race. I'm concerned, but Vettel, this was his prime season to get the championship, and I think the whole reason why Leclerc is in there, and I know we've discussed this before, is that Vettel cracked, and they're already thinking, we need backup plans, we need fresh blood. What can we do to sort this out? And I think that change of dynamic will either wake up Vettel or get him shipped on out, and then Leclerc will be the number one, very similar to the Ricciardo Vettel in Red Bull. Yeah,
definitely. I'm curious though if things really go badly for Vettel next season and Ferrari decide to get rid of him. I have no idea who they'd put in that car.
That is a very
because
good point.
I don't see them taking a risk on Giovinazzi the way they've taken a risk on Leclerc. I mean,
nope.
It's fairly unprecedented for them to take a young driver at all anyway.
And he's Italian,
like the
which
last
they never
time.
do.
I'm getting monstered down here because I'm on low fuel.
Do low
Bit of a
fuel.
naughty corner cut there because my brakes are hot as well.
Do low fuel around this sector, and then pump it back up to number 2 for the straight.
I broke traction there as well.
Spammy's ahead. Oh, so close. Coming out from the into sector 1. Oh, mind you, Kimi's giving. Ooh, okay.
Well, at least there's something interesting going on. So all in all, I kind of think, if they were going to win the championship, that was their best shot, but they kind of fluffed it.
Mm-hmm.
Or more specifically,
Vettel fluffed it.
Vettel fluffed it. At least in terms of the drivers. And that's the one they really care about anyway. I do think Kimi could end up going either way at Sauber. And I do actually expect Leclerc to outperform Vettel next year. He just seems so hungry.
I agree.
Oh, this is not going to go well. I'm burning what little battery I have left.
He looked for it, but that's worked out really well because he's tardy off that corner, so you'll be fine down here.
That's good because I have to turn everything to low. Do
that fine round this sector and then just full beans whatever you can down that final straight.
Do you want to kick us off on Formula E then, since we said we would talk about it?
Yeah, so Formula E kicks off in Saudi Arabia. Oh dear. All of the social justice out there for that one. Next weekend, actually, is when that one kicks off. I'm super excited and intrigued. I think you're okay. Nice. Cheeky, but that's fucking done it, and you just don't screw it, and you've got the win.
Just don't bin it now. I hope that wasn't dirty. I really couldn't see where he was.
No, you were fine. You were fine. It's pushed Vettel back
because I have made some
Kimi.
Questionable moves and got away with it.
It's fine. It's fine. Questionable's fine when you're doing this AI. So obviously fresh new season. NC Gamer Boy was asking us what do we think about the new attack mode in Formula E, which is obviously new this season with the Mario Kart style pads and all of that kind of stuff. Obviously new constructors and a victory. Woo! Woo! For Mr. Zero, 1 each. Nicely done, sir.
I got lucky in more ways than one, but I'll take it. I wasn't a fan, I wasn't a fan of the pads in theory, but I want to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Because I'm open-minded. I'm prepared to entertain the possibility that actually it's a positive to the sport. But I am excited about the way the grid's shaping up. I'm excited about the teams. I think the Virgin car, which is my favourite team, has the best looking livery I've seen in a very long time. Overall, I can't really stress enough how excited I am about the new Formula E season. I'm a little disappointed that we won't have Felix Rosenqvist, but I think the depth of talent we're seeing in the field and a lot of drivers being there on merit is encouraging. I'm also pleased to see Nismo take over the Renault entry. Yeah, I mean, there's not really anything I can point to and say I'm not happy about it. Save for, I'm curious to see what happens with Felipe Massa. Because really, I half expected him to step away from Formula racing, and I hope the years that he has in Formula E are good to him and that he can be good for the sport, but I don't really know. And Venturi's a strange team as well. It's hard to place how they're going to be.
Yeah, because they were a bit midfieldy-ish in testing, if I remember rightly. Like, they've never really been like a strong forerunner. They kind of go up and down all over the shop.
Yeah, I blame Leonardo DiCaprio. So, I mean, it's really hard to call. The most interesting thing for me will be to see what happens with Techeetah.
Yes.
Because I still think their lineup of Andre Lotterer and Jean-Eric Verne is both competitive and positive because they seem to get along. So they don't have any inter-team tension, but they've got two very competent drivers, including the world champion. And now they're a works-powered team, and they've got the DS units that Virgin had. And I would say last year, even though there were some good races for other teams, Mahindra in particular I'm thinking of, and Audi, of course, I would say that the DS powertrain looked really, really good. And I don't expect it to go backwards in comparison to anyone else's. So I am very curious to see how that pans out. It'll be interesting, I think, to see them, even though I'm not particularly a Techeetah fan, it will be interesting to see them remain somewhere towards the front because I think in terms of consistency and consistent success, Audi were getting a little too grabby for my liking. So all in all, I still think Formula E offers a great level of genuine competition with great drivers, and the new cars are exactly what the sport needs. Faster, longer battery life. That immediately opens up more strategy options for you, because my one criticism had been, since they have all-weather tyres, pit strategy in Formula E was super predictable, and I'm hoping that higher capacity batteries to some extent mitigates that.
Yeah,
do you run longer on your first car and have a faster car in the second stint of the race? What I really want is to get to a point in Formula E where you finish the race in the car you start in and you stop for tyres. I'd like to see something like that happen, or have battery packs that are swapped out, because I know there was a lot of criticism about refueling in Formula 1, but if you go back and look at races from the 90s where refueling was there, you can't say they weren't exciting, at least at the start, where some teams fueled light. Now, of course, fueling light in Formula E doesn't confer a speed advantage like it does with fuel. However, pitting early would at least put you out in clear air, and I'd just like to see something. And it's hard to quantify exactly what's needed, but something that makes the strategy a little bit more of a contributory factor.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like, and this is me riffing here, that instead of stopping for tyres, they stop for different types of battery power voltage. So that you have to do a bit like in Formula 2, where you have to do at least 6 laps on each compound of tyre. They have to do at least X amount of laps on a 150 battery and then a 200 and then a 250. And then imagine having to play all that out together.
Yeah, it's probably quite hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
And I've never been a huge fan of like gimmicks for the sake of gimmicks. But I guess really it's tyres that you have the most control over. But I understand why they've had an all-weather control tyre for the first years of the championship.
Oh yeah.
I think that was definitely the right thing to do. But given that competition is already quite close, except for like occasional races, there have been, like when I've watched the Berlin E-Prix, there are some guys who really struggle with that track. Most of them are not in the sport anymore because they tend to embarrass themselves so badly. I remember the year before last, one of the Mahindra car, I think it was Mahindra, was at the back by an increasingly big margin, and I just couldn't place where he was losing all this time. It was insane. But in general, the competition's really tight, and no car has like a ridiculous advantage, and I think that should be maintained as far as is reasonable. But there is room there to open up something and have a little bit of a more exciting team strategy play out. I do like that the powertrains are very, very varied. You know, some teams running with like one gear, some running with three, some have two power units. Which I'm a fan of. Like that they've definitely got right, because somehow there's parity between the power units, but they're all very differently specialised.
I like that.
Which I think, you know, that makes for interesting racing. Reminds me very much of the tyre wars with Bridgestone and Goodyear. But yeah, I'm hoping that Virgin do well, because they are my team. And I'm just hoping for another strongly competitive season as the sport continues to grow in viewership and grow in visibility. And most of all, I hope that Jaguar figure out what the hell it is in their powertrain that makes their car sound so terrible and loud compared to everyone else's. Because that was the only thing that really annoyed me about the Berlin E-Prix last season. Because I don't want to bash Jaguar too much, because everything that was going on at the Berlin E-Prix was funded by Jaguar. Like, everything was Jaguar branded. There'd be nothing there if it weren't for them. But their cars sounded awful compared to the rest, and they were really, really loud. It was super distinctive, and it made me very curious as to what they've done that the others haven't done. Hello, Beetlejuice. I'm afraid you've missed us, mate, but it's good to hear from you. I will be back streaming sometime this week.
He won.
You missed that. And I won. I won as well. I did all right. So it's worth watching back on replay for that. There were some naughty moves, which I'm sure people will disapprove of. Thank you. I am pleased with the win. I needed it as well, because if we take a look at the standings, maybe...
You're now ahead.
No, I've leapfrogged you. I didn't... Oh, yeah, because you were 15 points ahead. I thought you were 25 points ahead, and I thought, we should be about the same.
No.
I'm sure I'll bin it.
I reckon I was on course for a fifth in that race, so that would have kept it a nice close.
I don't know, right? Because genuinely here, I don't think I could have got past you. Reason being that all the times I caught you and was, you know, thinking, well, next corner maybe I could make a move, you had just so much extra launch speed and corner exit traction that I couldn't touch you. And also, whenever I get close to you on track, I immediately freak out, and I'm nowhere near as aggressive with you as I am with the AI, because
just as well.
I'm very aware how bad it would be if we took each other out in the middle of a podcast that requires us to drive. So yeah. However, I'm glad that our trend from the last 2 seasons has carried over into this one, where even though we've not had a double finish so far this season, we are still seemingly quite close on pace.
We are, and we're still third in the constructors as well, so that's good.
We are, but I mean, we've dropped a lot of points. I think.
Yes, we are.
I don't think we could ever have got the. I don't think we could have got P1, but I was hoping we could improve on the P3 we got last year, and that's looking increasingly unlikely, because already there's a 48-point gap to Mercedes, which is pretty rough. Beetlejuice says Vettel on 125 points. Cody's please, unrealistic. This is not 2013. L, O, and indeed L, my friend.
Superb.
Cool. Oh. Well, cracking. That was a cracking season review, and we even managed to talk a bit of Formula E, which is always pleasant.
Indeed, indeed. We will be back in just over a week or so's time, I think.
Yeah,
Or
just
are we
over a
not?
week, yeah.
Yeah, for our Christmas
No, we-
special.
Yeah, we have to figure out what we're doing, because traditionally, Christmas special we've done on something other than this game.
We have. We'll have to have a think. And see
Yeah.
what carnage we can
I was going to say
find.
GT Sport, but you'll spank my bottom on GT Sport. So, and definitely on All Star Fruit Racing. So, I'll have to check the PS store and see if there's. Oh God, it's France next.
Do you know what? My tyre wear and tyre temperatures at France meant that's been the worst race I've had apart from Monaco this year. So you will spank me here.
I actually did better in the race than I did in qualifying in France because I had the same problem, and I eventually adapted to it. But I hate this track; it's horrible.
It's awful.
Do we both have Project Cars?
Yes, we do.
And we both got Project Cars 2, right?
Yes, we do.
Then maybe we do that. That was Beetlejuice's suggestion, and I quite like it. Although I can't drive anything in that game that isn't a Formula car. They're too heavy. They're too heavy. You have to brake a million miles from the apex. I'm not used to it.
I can't drive the karts. The karts give me motion sickness, but apart from that, I think I'm okay.
Then we'll do that. I'm still on the fence about getting a PSVR. I might have to think about it.
Ooh, so they were doing some stuff on in King's Cross St Pancras, and I had a little go in there in front of a crowd of people at 7 a.m. Probably wasn't a good idea before getting on a 3-hour train journey because it made me feel so ill. But if you do get PSVR, this is a complete left field throw. You must get Tetris Effect. That game is art and beauty personified. I am in love with that game, and in PSVR, I was just like, "Oh, so pretty!" And I know it's only Tetris, but oh my god, if I could literally have a baby with a game, it's going to be that one at the minute.
That is a very Simon thing to say. Before we end, some final comments from Beetlejuice. He'd like to see us do V8 supercars, which I think could actually be interesting. He also said he got an Oculus Rift on Black Friday and said it's amazing. Never wants to race on a screen again. That's what I was hoping to hear. The problem is I've always felt I'd be super self-conscious wearing a VR headset. It's the kind of thing like your mates from college would walk in and go, "Oh, looking good there, robo-twat." There's also the thing that you're not aware of what's around you. I'm just glad that I don't live with people who would come up and flick me in the balls while I couldn't see them.
You'd need to make sure how you can drink your bespoke energy drink as well.
Oh yeah, I need a straw for my energy drink. Yeah, you're right. I need to come up with a system to get my Benergy.
Benergy.
Anyway, thank you
Copyright.
very, very much, sir. Thank you to everyone who watched on your stream.
Yes.
Thank you to Beetlejuice for joining me, and for everyone who's watching on replay.
Yeah.
Have a Christmassy wine or whatever it is you have in your local place of residence for us, and we will see you in a week and a day.
Yes.
Yeah, a week and a bit.
Take care, all. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Bye.
Bye.